So today we're going to talk bubbles. We've been talking bubbles for about a year, but I've had enough of those kind of bubbles, so we're going to talk about these kind of bubbles. What you need to make this kind of a bubble is not a whole bunch of your friends and close family friends, but what you need is you need 16 cups of water, a cup of detergent. Now I used Joy. You could use Dawn. There's some Dawn in a cup here, and it can be any size cup as long as it's 16 parts of water and about a part of detergent. And then what you're going to do is you're going to add some baking powder. And baking powder right out of the kitchen, that's going to help to make your bubbles better. In fact, if you don't have baking powder, sometimes we have cornstarch, not cornmeal, but cornstarch. You can put about the same amount, 2 tablespoons of cornstarch in there. And once you get that set up, if you want to make really nice bubbles, swing by the grocery store and get some glycerin. Glycerin might be in the baking section because they use this stuff to make frosting nice and shiny. So we're going to have to make one of those little rings that we blow the bubbles through, but we want our bubbles to be bigger, so we have to have a bigger ring. So if you can get yourself a couple of sticks, it could be anything. It could be a little bit of alderwood, it could be a couple of yardsticks. I've got a couple of dowels here. If you take some eye hooks, screw them into the end. You could even put a nail in there, just bend the nail over. All you need is something to be able to tie onto. So making a nice big round ring for your bubble making, a lot of people say you can use a piece of rope, but I found that a piece of rope doesn't work so good. It doesn't soak enough up. You can use something like jute, but jute's not very thick, so you won't make a big bubble. So what I did is I got an old sock. I think this was Mr. McFeeder's sock. I'm glad he washed it for me before we used it. And all I do is I cut it like one of those curly fries. And if I just cut all the way around and I go all the way around my sock, and you want to use a cotton sock if you can, until you get to the very end, you're going to have a big, long piece of fabric. It's going to look something like this one right here. You tie it onto the end of your sticks, whether you have nails in there or eye hooks, whatever. It doesn't have to be neat and clean. You can see I didn't do a great job. Before you tie it on, take a nice washer or something that's heavy like that you can slip over the fabric. Hang it on there, and that way you're going to have a weight so that you can make bubbles. Better than the bubbles we've been in for the last year. So you want to make sure that you've got your bubble mix at room temperature. I tell you, you want to let your bubble mix sit around for a couple of hours in the air temperature that you're going to be doing this in. In fact, this bubble mix has been sitting around for a week. And I think the longer it sits, maybe the better it gets, certainly for a day. The first time I made this, I made bubbles within minutes, and the bubbles were the size of basketballs. But I let it sit for a couple of hours, and all of a sudden the bubbles were the size of, like, large children. Now just spread it out. Let your breeze outside. It's going to be a good weekend for that. Let your breeze just press against. Like this right here, where it just keeps getting longer and longer and longer and longer. Oh, most kids can do better than I can do. You got to be really patient. You hold it up and you spread it out and you keep spreading, it doesn't work. So you just spread it a little bit. Just let it build and build and build. Get a nice bubble out of that. That was a pretty decent bubble. You can name your bubbles. This bubble's going to be named Alex. Watch that. Yep. It's going to be a great weekend to make bubbles.